presentation. My name is John and I will be your host. Today we're going to talk about the topic or the statement that many people make, I want to stop smoking. And so many people are saying this and have said it, and so few of those people have been able to accomplish what it is that they wanted to do, that is to actually stop smoking. So in today's presentation, we're going to have a look at ways and means that we can go about to achieve that goal, should there be anybody who's been struggling with this. Before we start, I just want to make two statements with regards to the information that we're going to be going through today. The first one, nobody has ever made the necessary changes in their lives by knowing what to do. I want to say that again. No one has ever made the necessary changes in their lives by knowing what to do. And the truth is, nobody ever will. The only way anybody has ever made the necessary changes in their lives was when they did what they knew. In other words, they accomplished that by doing what they know. And that implies an implementation of the principles, doing the right thing based on the information that I've gained. If I had to simply hear information, it means absolutely nothing. But when I start to act on that information, start to implement the principles and the techniques and the tools, that is what brings about change. The second point, the information in this presentation has the potential to change your behavior, or the information in this presentation has the potential of not bringing about any change. What makes the difference? Point number one, when I do that which I know or that which I've learned, the information in this presentation could potentially be life-changing. Something else I just want to point out is that we are not going to look at specific tools and techniques of stopping smoking. There are a huge number of that available on the internet. There are YouTube videos that will show you various techniques that may include medication, it may include hypnotherapy, it may include various kinds of psychological or therapeutic approaches. What we're going to look at today is whatever technique or whatever tools that the individual may choose that they feel comfortable about, what are the additional ways and means? In other words, what the various principles are that will be important to implement along with these techniques. And I know this may sound a bit confusing, but it will become clearer as we continue with this presentation. The first mistake people make is saying, I want to stop smoking. Why is that a mistake? Well, first of all, if you've ever said that and you have not been successful in stopping smoking, by the way, some people seem to be able to make the decision and they can stop. Other people make the decision and nothing changes. And I'm particularly talking to those who may be struggling with this decision and not being able to bring it to pass or to fulfill their desire in this particular context. Why is saying, I want to stop smoking a mistake? Well, first of all, what does it make you feel when you say that? And I remember when I was in the process of wanting to stop smoking, the more I thought about I want to stop smoking, the more powerless I became and the more anxious I became, because I knew it was something that consciously I wanted to do because I understood the benefits. But there was a part of me that really resisted against it. And there was a part of me that provoked, as I said, some anxiety when I thought about that. The second point is the statement, where is the focus? I want to stop smoking. The focus is on the smoking. And there is a psychological, neurological, quantum mechanics law or principle that states whatever I focus on is what I feed energy, is what I create and experience more of. Although I may be saying I want to stop smoking, at a subconscious level, the desire to stop is secondary, and focusing on the smoking is primary. And again, we will clarify this principle as we move along. But it's really important to understand that saying I want to stop smoking for many people is the first mistake they make. So how do I remedy this mistake? What else do I do? I'm glad you asked the question, because we will have a look at that as we progress. There's something that is referred to as the 80-20 rule. And from a psychological perspective, what that means is that success or the achievement of any goal or desire is 80% psychology and 20% action. And that means the action that I take only contributes about 20% to the accomplishment or the fulfilling of that goal or desire. The other 80% is the psychology, meaning the mindsets, the ways of thinking, the beliefs, the intentions, and at some level, even the emotions. In other words, all the processes that play out inside of me, in my mind, in my thinking, in my brain, in my consciousness. 80% of what happens in there will either contribute towards the achievement of my goal, or will contribute towards me self-sabotaging in this journey of, or in this process of achieving the goals. So unless there is harmony, unless there is congruity, unless there is coherence, unless there is agreement between what goes on inside of me, my thinking, my beliefs, my emotions, my intentions, and the action that I take, there is a very, very slim chance in achieving the goal. And again, we will explore that as we go along. Very interesting statement with regards to habits. The truth is, you don't break a habit. You replace it with a good one. I remember years ago, it being sort of a common thought or a common saying, it takes about 21 days to break a habit. Well, strictly speaking, that statement is unscientific. It is not good psychology or neurology, because it doesn't quite work that way. A habit is more than just something that I do. A habit is the result of a pattern. It's the result of a program. It's a result of something that has become part of who I am at some level. And if it was that easy to simply stop the habit or break the habit, none of us would have the problems that we experience. It is far less about breaking the habit, because that is pretty much impossible. It's about developing new habits. It's about going away, forming new patterns and forming new programming with what it is that we want to experience in comparison to what it is we may be experiencing currently, if we are stuck in a negative habit or behavior that we want to change, for example, smoking. And by the way, we're talking about smoking today, but these principles apply to any kind of habit, any kind of behavior that we would want to change. Another very, very important principle, every behavior starts with a positive intention, with the emphasis being on every behavior. Whatever it is that I do, there is always a positive intention behind that behavior or that habit. And this is where a lot of people have a problem, and they will point out like really, really bad, negative, destructive things that people do, and they will say, well, how can you say there is a positive intention? Well, that's just how the mind works. The subconscious mind sees a positive intention in every single behavior. What is that intention? The meeting of some kind of need at some level. Let's use an example that is sort of neutral. The schoolyard bully who hurts other kids, particularly kids younger and smaller than him or herself. That is what would be considered negative behavior, destructive behavior, problematic behavior. What is the positive intention behind that? Well, for the most part, there is a need for validation. There is a need for respect. There is a need for control. There is a need to be looked up to. And the bully who intimidates others weaker or smaller or younger than him or her, at some level is trying to fulfill that feeling. If I can make somebody else less, I will be more. So that need is there, that intention is there. And of course, if it is what we call negative behavior, that real intention will never be accomplished and that real need will never be filled. But it doesn't change the fact that there is a positive intention behind the behavior. What is wrong with the intention that the schoolyard bully has? Nothing. The way that he is going about it may be problematic, but the desire for importance, for respect, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the way, as I said, that the individual is going about that. Same applies to smoking. What is the need being met by my smoking? What is it that I need? What is the payoff? What is the smoking giving me? And like with many behaviors or habits, a person gets to a stage where the behavior is no longer meeting that need. For example, smoking, where the person starts to realize that the negative consequences far outweighs any positive experiences. And yet, the smoking started because it met some kind of a need. It could have been peer pressure. I wanted to feel accepted. It could have been the need to experiment. It could have been looking for something that could help me to cope with life, or I've heard somebody say that smoking calms me down, so I started smoking in order to calm down. And by the way, smoking does not calm me down, because smoking or nicotine is a stimulant. So what does calm me down? It's the deep breathing, the dragging in and the breathing out that releases serotonin that calms me down. So smoking in that sense could meet a need. It does calm me down, although it's not the nicotine, it's the behavior itself. So if I am on this journey of wanting to stop smoking, and by the way, as I said in the first slide, that is problematic already, saying I want to stop smoking, so how can I reframe that? We will look at what else I could say or what else I could think that would be more empowering than thinking I want to stop smoking. But for now, we'll just stick to this principle. So if I want to change that behavior, it is important that I try and figure out what is it giving me? What are the maybe even unconscious benefits, or what were the benefits that got me started? And a belief developed inside of me that the only way I can meet that need, or the only way that I can derive that benefit, is by smoking. What is that? And the reason for that being, if all I do is stop the behavior, what happens to those needs? Those needs remain unmet. So I then am at risk of replacing those needs with other, maybe equally or more negative or damaging or dangerous behavior for that matter, or I will go back to the old behavior. And as I said in the beginning, there is nothing wrong with that need. There is nothing wrong with that positive intention. And it's really important that if I'm struggling to change a behavior, one of the reasons could be that that need that has been met is now unmet when I stop the behavior. So how do I go about changing a behavior, or starting a new behavior, or developing a new habit that will still meet whatever the needs may be? All behaviors and habits are firstly patterned into the brain, and secondly programmed into the subconscious. Patterned into the brain means they become pathways in the brain, and what that means is our behavior, what we do, why we do it, when we do it, how we do it, who we do it with. All that information is stored in nerve cells or neurons in the brain, and the more we continue with that behavior, the more those patterns start, those neurons start to connect with each other, and they start to form patterns, which turn into neural pathways, and the various neural pathways start to connect, and there are these neural networks in the brain. So with regards to smoking in this particular context, the individual has a neural network in the brain called the smoker or smoking. And what happens with these neural pathways or these networks, our thinking very often by default go down those paths. So we don't even realize it. So for example, I feel stressed and the thinking automatically goes towards, it's time for me to pick up a cigarette, because I know I can relax while I smoke. And I'm going to say it again, it's not the nicotine that causes the relaxation, it's the deep breathing that goes with the actual smoking. But I still have that association in that if I do this, that will be the feeling that I create. So that pattern in the brain is what keeps us stuck in our habits and our behaviors. It is also programmed into the subconscious. And what that means, all the information in that network in the brain relates to beliefs in the subconscious mind. And the beliefs could be along the line of the only way I can relax is by doing this. The only way I can enjoy myself is by doing that. The only way I can feel confident is by doing this, whatever the habit or whatever the behavior is. And those patterns and those programs, as I've said, will hold us to the behavior because it becomes default behavior, because the thoughts go down those pathways and that leads to the same behavior, plus the beliefs that are activated that the only way I can achieve what it is that I want to achieve or feel what it is that I want to feel is by doing that which I have been doing for a long time. If I now consciously decide, talking about smoking, I want to stop smoking, and I haven't found a way to deal with the patterns in the brain and the programs in the subconscious mind, for most people, it would be an exercise in futility, and we will continuously relapse back into the old patterns or go back to the default settings, as I refer to them, and we keep doing the same thing over and over. Talking about the subconscious mind, which is simply the deeper part of the mind, subconscious below consciousness, and that is where our memories are formed, that's where our patterns are formed, and that operates from the emotional or limbic center of the brain, which is the midbrain, as well as the reptilian part of the brain, which is the survival brain, where all these patterns are formed and the behavior becomes default behavior. There's something that is referred to as prime directives of the subconscious mind. In other words, what the subconscious mind does for us. And it's really imperative to understand that there is no thinking, there is no logic, there is no understanding in the subconscious. It purely operates from the patterns and the programs that we've developed basically from the time we were born. In other words, the beliefs, the ideas, the conditioning that it serves us with. And in smoking, I conditioned my subconscious mind that I can meet certain needs by smoking. So what does the subconscious mind do? It protects me based on what it has been conditioned to believe. Now, this might be strange, but this could result in consciously I decide I want to stop smoking because I understand that it is becoming a harmful behavior. The subconscious mind does not agree with that, because it has been programmed with the benefits of smoking, with whatever the needs may be that are met by smoking. So it could try to protect me from not smoking. It could try to protect me from stopping this behavior or changing this behavior that has served me. And it serves me by getting me to go back to doing what it is that I do so that I can achieve what it is that I want to achieve, or I can feel what it is that I want to feel. Such an important principle to understand, that conditioning that the subconscious mind protects me from and serves me from is very often what causes the self-sabotaging behavior and what we refer to as relapse, and in us going back to the old behavior. When there is conflict between the conscious desire, in this particular context, I want to stop smoking, and the subconscious program, and that programming or the conditioning with the benefits of smoking, the subconscious will always win. The subconscious always wins in this battle until I find a way to repattern and to reprogram to bring the subconscious conditioning into harmony and into congruity with my conscious desire. I can't overemphasize the importance of this principle, that conflict will always cause me to fall by the wayside, to relapse, to go back to old behaviors, as long as the conditioning remains focused on the benefits of smoking. in opposition to the conscious desire to stop smoking. That conflict, apart from it creating feelings of anxiety, when I think about stopping smoking, and feelings of fear, and the nervous system responding to those thoughts in creating a lot of negative emotions, the subconscious mind is then activated to serve me and to protect me by taking me back to the behavior that I know. It is also referred to as the comfort zone, that place that I'm in, that I keep doing what I'm doing because this is what I know. And just a personal observation, I don't really believe it is a comfort zone because it gets to a place where it is very uncomfortable. It should rather be referred to as the familiar zone. I keep doing what I'm doing because this is what I know and I know what the outcomes will be. All part of the conditioning. Now, if I want to step outside of that comfort zone, there is certain parts in my brain, certain filters, certain conditions that will do whatever it can to take me back into the comfort zone in order to protect me. There are two very important principles that also come into play in this whole particular process of wanting to stop smoking or wanting to change behaviors. There is the principle of association and there is the principle of identification. And these are all subconscious processes that form part of the conditioning. Association means to feel part of a group. And very often with certain behaviors and certain habits, we feel a sense of belonging to a group of people, for example, smokers. If I smoke and I'm with a group of other smokers, and for example, we're at a restaurant and we go outside to have a smoke, there is almost a sense of camaraderie. There is a sense of belonging, and it may be subtle, it may be unconscious, but it is there. So I feel a part of this group, and then thinking about changing the behavior implies that I will no longer be part of this group. And that could also send unconscious messages of danger, of risk. There's a threat of stepping into something that you are unfamiliar with. Then there is the principle of identification, that my behavior or my habit become a part of who I am. For example, I am a smoker. That is part of who I am. Now I want to change smoking. I want to change the behavior. I want to give up smoking. And that means I have to let go of part of my identity, part of who I have become. So part of this, if I can refer to the psychological process of getting to a place where I can change the behavior, it is important that I dissociate from that. That is a group and this is who I am. I don't necessarily have to fit into any particular group. I can relate to various groups, if that makes sense. I am okay in who I am. I am okay in myself. And also the identification, I am not a smoker. I am John, who happens to smoke. And by the way, I was able to let go of that habit through these principles. So that applied to me before. I felt I was a smoker, and as long as I felt that I was a smoker, it was impossible to let go of the habit. But when I realized that I am John and smoking was what I did, I was able to differentiate between me and the behavior. I no longer identified with it. I was able to differentiate between me and the group. I no longer had to associate with them. It really, really helped me to move to the place of changing the behavior. For some people, smoking meets an emotional and or psychological need as well as a physical need. And we already spoke quite a bit about the emotional needs. In other words, it gives me a certain feeling when I do, and the psychological needs, maybe a sense of acceptance, maybe a sense of belonging, maybe it gives me some kind of confidence, whatever the behavior is, whatever the substance is, and in this particular case, obviously smoking. And then for many people, it moves on to physical need where there is a dependence onto the particular behavior. In smoking, whatever the chemicals are that are in the cigarette, in particular nicotine, my body could get to a place where I develop a dependence on the nicotine. And simply what it means is my body slows down its own natural chemical production to meet certain needs for me, to make me feel a certain way, or to perform certain functions, and it starts to rely on the exogenous chemical that I am ingesting, I'm taking in through, for example, the smoking. So my body now becomes dependent on that. And when I stop smoking, when I start to withdraw the exogenous nicotine from my body could go into a level of shock because it has come to rely on the chemicals that I'm taking into my body, and it's got to relearn how to produce adequate amounts of the endogenous chemicals or natural chemicals that help me to function. And by the way, this can also apply to behaviors because, for example, gambling releases large amounts of dopamine for the gambling addict because of the excitement and, of course, a lot of adrenaline as well and euphoria. And that is all induced by the excitement of gambling. And when that person stops gambling, the body does not know and the brain does not know how to naturally produce those chemicals anymore. And the system goes into withdrawal and craving, and which very often it takes the person back to their old behavior. So in this process of recovery or in this process of changing the behavior, it's imperative that the individual find new ways and means to meet those emotional, psychological needs and also the physical needs for that matter. So the difference between wanting to stop smoking and needing to continue smoking is what causes the conflict within the person and what could cause the person to relapse and to go back to the old behavior. There's something that is referred to as withdrawal valence behavior versus approach valence behavior. Now, I like to use big words because they make me sound intelligent, but it simply refers to the push and pull factor. In other words, my intention with changing the behavior, my intention with wanting to stop smoking, is it withdrawal valence behavior? Is it something that I'm trying to get away from? Is it something I'm trying to push away from me? Is there something that, is this a behavior that keeps pushing me back to what it is that I know? Is it something that I'm focusing on, in other words? And all that really implies is, as I said earlier on, whatever I focus on, I'm going to experience and create more of. And if my focus is on the smoking that I'm trying to get away from, that could serve as self-sabotaging more than anything else because I'm focusing on what it is I'm trying to get away from. And then all the various conditions and patterns and beliefs that we've referred to earlier on could be triggered. And I keep going back to the very thing I'm trying to get away from. As opposed to approach valence behavior, simply meaning what is pulling me towards new behavior? What is there that I can look forward to? What is it that I want to achieve or accomplish? What is it that I want to experience more of instead of what I'm experiencing now? And there's a very important psychological principle in this. If I look at what it is I no longer want to experience, that is very important because there's a saying that we can't change what we don't acknowledge. So I look at my smoking and I tell myself what is wrong with it, what is negative about it, what it is I no longer want to experience. But then it is very important that I shift that focus away from the smoking and what it is I'm currently experiencing to a new behavior and what it is that I want to experience instead. Again, I can't overemphasize this principle, the importance of shifting the focus from what is to what it is that I would prefer. In other words, what it is that I want. There's also the what and why principle. Very often people are stuck in the why question. Why me? Why do things never work out for me? Why do I keep failing at this? Why can't I change my behavior? And that question comes from a place of helplessness and hopelessness and frustration and fear. And that just in turn elicit more negative emotions and a negative state, which could cause my conditioning to be activated that will take me back to the old behavior to make me feel better. A far more powerful question is what? What is it that I want? What is the new experience that I would prefer. And then we can add how to that. How do I go about it? Now, the only place that why has in this new way of thinking would be, why do I want this? And it goes back to what? What is it that I want to experience instead? What is it that I want to achieve? What is it that I want to accomplish? Very important principle. We're going to look at a video that explains some of the processes that takes place during smoking, and it also will help us to understand what it is that we may need to do to address this.
Most smokers want to quit. Many people stop smoking and never go back. But for the majority of smokers, it's not that easy. Many people try to quit smoking a number of times before they succeed in quitting for good. With all of the good reasons to quit using tobacco, why is it so hard for so many people to do it? A big reason has to do with brain chemicals. Certain things like chocolate trigger the release of natural chemicals in the brain that make you feel good. Naturally, we feel an urge to keep doing those things. Often we can resist overdoing it, but some things are harder to resist than others. Tobacco contains a very powerful addictive drug called nicotine. When nicotine reaches the brain, it fits perfectly into a receptor that releases those feel-good chemicals. Tobacco provides the brain with very high amounts of nicotine. As a result, the brain creates even more nicotine receptors, all of them wanting to be fed with more nicotine. Those urges can be very hard to resist. When you stop using tobacco, the body experiences symptoms of withdrawal. Urges to relieve those symptoms can become especially strong, and smoking gets nicotine to the brain in less than 10 seconds. But over time, if you don't use tobacco, the urges gradually weaken. Nicotine receptors begin disappearing, and people enjoy the many benefits of being tobacco-free.
So that sort of underscores what I've mentioned before with regards to the needs, and in particularly for the experience, the nicotine that causes dopamine to be released in the brain. Dopamine is the pleasure and enjoyment chemical. And also then when that behavior is stopped, or when the person stops smoking, that could cause withdrawal because the body doesn't, or the brain doesn't know how to naturally produce those chemicals without the nicotine being ingested, and also craving, where the body and the brain longs for the old behavior because I've got memories of what it felt like. So those are all areas that need to be addressed in this journey of changing that behavior. Just a statement that I think is very powerful. I reduce and eliminate the need for smoking by developing new behaviors and habits that meet my emotional, psychological, and physiological needs. And that goes back to, I don't get rid of the old habits. I develop new habits to replace the old habits. And one of the requirements would be, especially for those who are struggling to change behaviors, would be the new behavior that meets the same emotional needs. It provides me with similar or even better feelings. It provides me with the same psychological needs. It makes me feel the way I used to feel about myself, or even better. And then physiological needs, that I could feel better physically. And what that simply means is that my body and my brain will produce the necessary chemicals to make me feel good, make me feel healthy, make me feel energetic. And these are some of the very basic lifestyle choices that not only will provide a sense of well-being and physical health, but that also will go a long way in contributing towards changing the old behavior, and doing that by developing new behavior, developing new habits, and in particular by focusing on the benefits, focusing on the new experiences of the new behaviors. And some of the practical things will be to eat more fruit, because fruit contains a lot of the vitamins and certain minerals that makes me feel strong, that makes me feel healthy, that makes me feel good. And if I feel good, there may be less of a risk for me to do something else that I will feel good. Exercise, in my understanding and belief, is the number one new behavior, because exercise releases a whole range of feel-good chemicals, number one. And number two, it is also a powerful way of retraining the brain to naturally produce all the feel-good chemicals. And chemicals that make me feel energized, like endorphins, chemicals that make me feel good if I enjoy what I'm doing, like dopamine. And afterwards, I feel good about myself for doing it, is serotonin. And apart from feeling good, it obviously also adds to my physical health and ultimately to my mental health as well. Because my mental health is very much determined by the chemical balance within my brain and my body, the same with physical health. And if there is a balance in those chemicals through healthy behavior and healthy habits, it contributes towards a sense of well-being, which in turn may reduce the need for the old behaviors. Drinking more water, keeping the body hydrated, it helps to speed up some of the natural physical processes and functions, and ultimately also contributes towards me feeling better. Peace of mind, learning some mindfulness and calming exercises, and paying attention to what I'm thinking about, because that brings about a sense of calmness that puts me in a better state of mind and state of being, again, that may cause less of the need to go back to old behavior. Eating well, healthy nutrition, balanced nutrition, eating the foods that my body and my brain need in order to function well. Walk more. Apart from the physical exercise, there's also this peace of mind, particularly if I walk in areas that are beautiful and calm and peaceful. For example, a natural area where the birds are singing and there are beautiful trees. It's a physical benefit and a psychological and even emotional benefit. Meditation. There are so many meditation exercises, and all meditation really does, it helps me to focus on the present moment, to go beyond what is going on in my head. And as a result, it also releases serotonin, which is a calming, well-being chemical. Read inspirational books, increase your knowledge, learn more about how to deal with life, coping mechanisms, forming new beliefs, and just adding value to your life. Very, very important principles. So the truth is, with regards to my intention is what it is that I want to do and why it is that I want to do it. And that is really what determines the future. So having looked at what we looked at and hopefully developing some of a better understanding, is the truth is I do not want to stop smoking. That is the conscious thinking. The truth is I want to experience what it is that I could experience once I have succeeded in this process. So what do I really want? I want to experience freedom and self-determination. In other words, no longer feeling stuck in a habit, no longer doing something because I have to do it, no longer feeling I've got no say, no choice in the matter. So I want to take back my sense of freedom and self-determination. I want to experience good health. I want to experience feeling good physically. I want to experience feeling good mentally. I want to experience a higher level of energy. That should be the focus. And that goes back to the approach balanced behavior, focusing on what it is that I want to achieve. And saying I want to stop smoking does not evoke any of these feelings. But understanding that stopping smoking is the first step in making the decision to let go of my smoking, to change the behavior, to create new habits that will evoke all these experiences for me, feelings of freedom and self-determination, feeling good and healthy physically and mentally, having higher levels of energy, the real benefits. That is the real intention behind any behavior. And remember, all behavior is preceded by intention, positive intention. The difference is here, I'm bringing some more thought into it. I'm bringing choices into it. I'm bringing a higher level of consciousness into it. I'm bringing decision-making into it. I choose to do that which really, really serves me, and I will experience the long-term benefits as a result. That is the end of our presentation, and I really hope that you learned some things and you were able to relate what we spoke about. And remember what I said in the beginning, nobody ever brings about change because they know what to do. They only do so when they do what they know. And how do we learn to do what we know? Is through repetition, is through revisiting. So I really encourage you to maybe obtain a copy of this presentation. You can contact me at this email address, and to revisit and to go back to this presentation and just internalize some of the principles. And also, should you have any other questions or queries, please direct them to me at john.ttklife@gmail.com. I also provide online coaching on various topics, any area in your life that you would like to change. Having figured out there is something better that you could experience instead of what you're experiencing right now, you're free to contact me to inquire about that. I do offer a free 30-minute session where you tell me what it is that you're looking for. I tell you how I go about it, and you can see if there's a match. Or if you've got any other questions, please feel free to send me a message with whatever the questions may be. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I wish you an amazing journey as you move towards creating and designing the life that you desire and deserve. All the best.